Hey, we're live. Hey, and the mic works. Well, what do you know? That's good. Very good. We are live. For those watching the live stream, post the live stream, welcome in. This is Technical Foul, episode 41, the second and not the last solo episode with yours truly, Jen the Moon Guide, JP, Saints fan, Bears fan, Packers fan, um, and much more. Welcome in. Today we are going to be streaming. Yes, we are going to be talking about the NFL, and I'm going to give my quarterback tier rankings for this upcoming season. Very excited for that. Going to be some hot topics, um, some questionable takes for some, not for me because it came from me. Welcome into my humble abode. This is the Lake House, guest house slash suite, master suite, I'd call it more so. You can see behind me on my left, we got the net, the hitting net. There's a carpet floor in here, so I have taken the space that I have and turned the bedroom, which is the only room outside the bathroom, into a driving range itself. Um, so yeah, I hit golf balls into the net right here. You're sitting at my desk, which is on essentially like a makeup table for a chick. Got my PlayStation sitting here as well. Done all my recording stuff as well. I was playing EA Sports College Football 26 before I went live just now. I'm starting with Delaware this time around. And we are 3 games in. We're currently up 14-6 on UConn right now in week 4. It's going to be very interesting as the season progresses, how everything goes. Because I mean, I've seen so many tweets on TikTok, or not on TikTok, on Twitter, um, of people who like played on these like lower outside the Power 5 or Power 4 now schools, and they lose like 30 to 40 players after the end of year 1. I've seen a dude who literally went 7-5 year 1 at one of the Conference USA schools and lost 30 guys to the portal. So I'm really excited to see how that goes after the season. It'll be interesting. It's unique because it's never been something that's been put in a video game. Last year's game didn't really do a great job at it. You might lose 3 to 4 guys in the portal, and then you could pick up 10 or so each off season to go along with. I mean, you could get a recruiting class of 20 to 25 guys very easily. And even at the smaller schools, you could recruit for 3 stars and 4 stars very easily because you just find one that the bigger schools were not going for, and for whatever reason, like weren't recruiting at all. And then you come in at like week 8, check your recruiting tab, and lo and behold, a 4 star is just sitting there. A top 100 recruit is just sitting there, and he hasn't been contacted by anyone. So you just send the house at the guy, and Kennesaw State lands a 4-star linebacker that easily. That's not the case so far, it feels like, in this game, although I'm only in week 4. And from what I've seen as well, it's not the case. So it's going to be really interesting how that goes. I think the best recruit I have is like a top 500 recruit just on the border of top 500, and I'm not guaranteed to get him. I'm going to be in a recruiting battle with another school for him. So that's going to be really fun. It's going to actually feel like building a program and building a team, which I'm really excited for. It's like I said, it's never been something that's been in a video game before, where you also have the transfer portal aspect of it. And the only thing I wish there was NIL in there as well. That'd be really cool if you could. I think with now like the essentially salary cap thing we're about to have in college football, if that's something that gets incorporated to this game as well, it's going to make it so fun. Because being able to offer players money to persuade potentially would be really sick. But it's going to be, I'm really excited. I'm enjoying the gameplay. Gameplay's about this. It's a little bit better than last year. And last year, I thought the gameplay was one of the best football games I've ever played in terms of gameplay. I thought it was super fair, super unique. For me, I've played Madden college football my entire life. And I'm self-proclaimed semi-professional at it as well. And even for me, competing on the highest difficulty Heisman was still very difficult. And I would go into games like I did a dynasty with JMU and then moved on from there. But with JMU, like if I played a school that had 5 to 6 overall plus on me, it would be difficult. It'd be a tough game. I'd lose more than I would win, and that's what made it rewarding, because then you need to go back to recruiting. You need to get your players better. You need to hit on bigger transfers, and that's what I loved about College Football 25 was that it felt like I was a college football coach, and now 26 is adding on to that, and I'm excited to see how the season wraps up with Delaware. But for now, let's get into what I actually came here to talk about today, and that's my quarterback rankings for the season. And so this was tweeted out by us earlier this week on the Techno Foul Twitter, which follow that if you'd like on X. And essentially you can tier list your NFC and AFC quarterbacks, and I've done that here today. So let's see if I can share my screen. Bang, yes I can, and we'll throw that show mode. So here we are. This is my AFC quarterback rankings for the season. And oh sweet, that's even better. So here you go. Yeah, and in S tier we have Mr. Patrick Mahomes. I would Sanders gave his rankings, and Sanders has Josh Allen and Lamar and Joe in S tier with Patrick Mahomes, but I feel like for me, I mean I'm the biggest Patrick Mahomes hater you'll ever find. I completely dislike the guy. And I really wish nothing but the worst for him in terms of his football accomplishments. But I can even recognize that Mahomes he's in his own class. You can't compare him to the other three, even if, I agreed the other three might be more talented than he is from an athletic standpoint, especially from a number standpoint last season. But Mahomes is 6-1 versus them in the playoffs, those three guys. He's got 3 Super Bowls, obviously, and I think the big thing with the Chiefs, which I'll mention when we get into the Chiefs and their predictions later on here in a couple weeks, they were 15-2 last season, and we don't remember that because they were just absolutely destroyed in the Super Bowl. And they had a lot of close wins, a lot of one-score wins, but they were unbelievably clutch. Mahomes was clutch as well. He's truly remarkable. In the last 2 seasons, he's had 12 fourth quarter comebacks / game-winning drives, and that's 3 more than another quarterback who is on this AFC list. Which go ahead and guess in your mind who that would be. We'll get into that here in just a couple minutes, but I think it's just a huge separator. The 6-1 versus those top 3. And then even if you extended it, like he's beat CJ Stroud in the playoffs, he's beat Trevor Lawrence in the playoffs, and this every single year he has been in Kansas City. Kansas City has reached the AFC Championship game, and that is even when Brady was there in New England, and that's even with this elite group of MVPs. And 2 with Lamar and 1 with Josh Allen, and then even Joe Burrow, who basically put up MVP numbers as well last season. Yes, all 3 were excellent last season, and that's why they are clearly not far above and beyond the rest of the AFC quarterbacks, and that's why they're on their own tier. But Mahomes has beat them, done more than them, and while his numbers are not as great, he is, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the AFC, best quarterback in the NFL, and he deserves to be in his own tier above these 3 guys, whether or not you think they played better than him last season, which I do think the other 3 played better than him last season, but you can't discount the fact that the dude wins and the dude beats these guys in the playoffs, which he's done pretty much every time. Joe Burrow is the only one that's done it. So that kind of covers your S tier and A tier for me. By the way, this tier list also goes left to right. So I have Mahomes, and then I have Josh Allen as my second best quarterback, but they're in tiers as well, and that continues on throughout the list. That brings us to the B tier. B tier, I have, for me, the 5th best quarterback in the AFC, but not the NFL. I have CJ Stroud. I think he's shown that from a number standpoint across the past 2 years. I think he's been really, really good. And to make the postseason twice after, Houston was kind of in shambles with the Deshaun Watson situation, and then even with trading Deshaun Watson. But DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud have come into Houston, and they have led the Houston Texans to a division win twice. And whether the division is, bad or not, which it is bad, they have made the postseason twice. They've won a playoff game twice, which is another stand on its own. And CJ Stroud deserves to be right there in that list right now. Yes, there was regression last year. I think large part of it is, the dude was lit up. He was sacked the second most out of any quarterback in the NFL last season, and outside of Caleb Williams. And yet he was still fine and played some good games. And I think the receiver health was a big part of it. Stephon Diggs was hurt, tearing his ACL. Tank Dell blows his leg out. Nico Collin even missed time last season, and I think it was a huge part of kind of the regression of CJ Stroud in year 2. Not necessarily that he wasn't playing as well or lost the talent that we saw that rookie season, or even it was a thing of, okay, they have tape on him now, and now they know how to attack him. I think that was part of it, but I think a large part of it was the receivers were not healthy, and then the offensive line, it was putrid. It's not going to be any better than this season, and I don't expect, like I predicted, I don't expect the Texans to really be much better than they were last season, even if they are healthy. But CJ Stroud is the 5th best quarterback in the AFC for me, and so that's why I have him there at the B tier, just below those top 4. Geno Smith is there at 6 for me, and I know that's wild, but I'll get into that here in just a moment. Before I get into that, I do want to go into Justin Herbert, who is probably the big outcry right now, and the big. If you first looked at this tier list, you notice Geno Smith in there in the B tier, and I will get into that. But Justin Herbert in the C tier, for some guys, he's the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. For the NFL executives or whatever list they just released this week that all the media is talking about, Herbert is the 6th best quarterback in the NFL. And I get it. The numbers are great in the regular season, but for me, it's postseason is a large part of it. To throw more interceptions than he threw the entire season in the one playoff game against the Texans, I think speaks numbers. And then I do want to kind of argue, are the numbers as great as you think they are? And to do that, I want to do a little blind reveal. So this is Justin Herbert, and this is his numbers over the past 2 seasons. He was, of course, they were a good team last year, winning 11 games, but 2 years prior, they were a 5-win team, missed the postseason by a wide margin. And you go through his numbers, 7,000 yards over the past 2 seasons, 43-10, like that jumps out to you. That's a really good ratio. 4-1 is like, that's really, really good for one of the elite NFL quarterbacks. It reminds you of the numbers Aaron Rodgers used to put up. And I think that's great. I completely understand it. The eye test is there. He makes big plays. He's clearly very, very talented. Passer rating at 97.7, completion percentage at 65. The guy on the right was 14-13 over the last 2 seasons. Threw for 1,000 less yards, but I do want to mention that he played 3 less games, and at his average, that would get you to about 200 yards less than Justin Herbert. Touchdown to interception was 40-13, so he could throw for more touchdowns than Herbert. And while the interceptions were a little bit more, it's not a huge difference there. Passer rating, it's better. Completion percentage is 3% better, which in completion percentage numbers is actually kind of substantial. That's about 10 to 15 more completions. Any guesses in the comments if you're watching live? Oh, what's up, Abby? It's not Geno on the right. On the right is none other than Derek Carr. Which for a Saints fan, I laugh because I know the outrage is with Derek Carr was, oh, he was putrid, he was terrible, he was clearly not talented. He would throw hospital balls for Chris Olave. He didn't win big games. I just realized that blocks out the completion percentage. Yeah, 68% for his completion percentage. Yeah, it's Derek Carr. So they basically have the same numbers over the past 2 seasons, and I know not many people are going to have Derek Carr even top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. And so there's my first counter to, Justin Herbert. Numbers are great, but are they really that good when you compare them to Derek Carr? Who would you take in this comparison? For me, I guess I'd take Herbert, but it's the numbers are a huge part of it. And I think the eye test is a huge part of all these guys that are defending Herbert and think that he's really excellent, but the numbers aren't necessarily that much better than Derek Carr over the past 2 seasons. The next blind reveal, there's another guy here. The record the same. This is the last 2 seasons for him. More passing yards on less games. So he would have, kind of got Herbert by about 1,000 yards. Touchdown to interception, threw for 12 more touchdowns across that time. He'd probably throw for about 15 more. The interceptions is obviously a big difference there. Passer rating is way down, 97.7 to 90.4. And completion percentage, it's blocked out by my screen. It's the same. It's 65.5% to 65.1%. So 0.4 completion percentage difference. Any guesses in the comments on who this may be? Go ahead and think in your mind. Also, who would you take here? Would you take the guy with the more yards and touchdowns with the trade-off of a little lower pass rating because of the interceptions? Geno Smith is the guess again. It is none other than Big Ben. It's Ben Roethlisberger in his last 2 seasons in the NFL. And it's a little bit back in our mind. That's about 3 seasons ago, but how do you remember Big Ben in his last 2 seasons? Was he being viewed as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? I'd argue no, obviously. And the eye tests, of course, are a lot different there, but the numbers kind of speak for themselves. They're arguably better. I personally would take the more passing yards and touchdowns over Herbert's, less interceptions. I'd also say that, try to remember the Steelers' offense. It kind of hasn't changed for 20 years. It's not really explosive. There's not a lot of big plays. They're not a team that throws the ball around the park. They like to run the football down your throat, and that's kind of always how they've played since they've been under Mike Tomlin. And Big Ben still threw for more passing yards and more touchdowns than Justin Herbert. And Herbert's kind of viewed as a quarterback that is known for his deep plays and explosive plays and the big touchdown runs and stuff like that. But Big Ben is the slow one, and his throwing motion's a little weird. Big Ben he's won 2 Super Bowls, so he's clearly a great quarterback. But was he viewed as a top 5 quarterback in his last 2 seasons in the NFL? I'd argue no. So for me, that's kind of the big reason that I'm putting Herbert in this C tier ranking with the guys like Trevor Lawrence and Tua, and then kind of projections a little bit for Drake May and Cam Ward, but even almost on the same tier as a Justin Fields or a Daniel Jones, because the numbers don't necessarily imply that he is far and away better than these guys here. I mean, Tua has the passing yards, and Trevor Lawrence beat him in the playoffs. And while Drake May and Cam Ward haven't played a game, like, who's to say they can't put up kinds of numbers like that next season? And I think they are kind of being expected to put up those kinds of numbers next season. They're kind of viewed as among the elite tier of those young quarterbacks, those first contract quarterbacks to go along with CJ Stroud and Bo Nix. They're kind of expecting that year 2 from Drake May and a year 1 from Cam Ward. So for the guys that have Justin Herbert so high, I throw to you Derek Carr has arguably about the same numbers, and Big Ben Roethlisberger in his last 2 seasons has about the same numbers. Here's Herbert from a rank perspective. Those are his same numbers right there on the left. I've included also game-winning drives. Time sacked is a big part of it, but in the last 2 seasons, he's only 8th in terms of time sacked. But I mean, look at the ranks: 13th, 18th. He's tied 17th in game-winning drives, and then 8th in time sacked. If you compared it with the guys who are actively starting quarterbacks in the AFC, 8th, 7th, tied 6th. Where did I have him on the list? I had him 8th on my list. So that's kind of where he is from a numbers perspective. If numbers is a big argument, and I get the touchdown interception is a big argument, then this is kind of my counter to that, is to say that it's not necessarily even top 5, which is where you would hope it would be if you're claiming Herbert is that top 5 quarterback. And I get the eye test is there, but I think you have to, at some point, the eye test isn't everything. Like, the eye test for me in college football over the past few seasons, the eye test for DJ Uiagalelei for me was there, and the 5-star rating was there, and it was the throws he could make said that this guy has the chance to be good, and then he wasn't good. And then he goes to Oregon State, and he's built off that pedigree of he was at Clemson, he was starting quarterback, and then he wasn't very good. And then he, again, finishes in Florida State last year, and they were putrid. But not to compare Justin to DJ, but it feels on that similar scale of, I mean, how long are we going to say the eye test is there? Because for Herbert, it is his last 2 seasons, he hasn't been great. And in the postseason, he's been very bad. I mean, choking a 28-0 lead is not something to really roll your eyes at. And in last season, in the postseason, he was terrible, with 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions against the Houston Texans. So for those guys that are arguing Herbert is a top 5 quarterback, I disagree. I don't see him even that high in the AFC, a top 5 AFC quarterback, which would probably be a top 5 NFL quarterback. But Herbert's a C tier for me. And a big part of that is he's got to prove it in the postseason. But I also just don't think the numbers are as eye-popping as people might say. I completely understand the eye test argument. I'm going to make that argument for NFC quarterbacks here later. But Herbert is he really that good? I mean, Daniel Jones has more playoff wins than him. Trevor Lawrence has more playoff wins. And it's just, I don't know. I expect them to be better this season, to be honest. Now, they were an 11-win team last season, so that's not necessarily like it could be just 12 wins. Harbaugh is a winner. He's always led teams to higher places. I mean, he took Colin Kaepernick to a Super Bowl. I can attest. I was there live when they won the NFC Championship. And Herbert, I think, has been a great partnership with Harbaugh. Clearly, that showed being an 11-win football team last year, but I don't see it yet right now with Herbert of, okay, he is a top 5 quarterback in the AFC. He's a top 5 quarterback, top 6 quarterback in the NFL. He's just lower down on the rung for me because the numbers just don't say it. And I think people kind of just hold on to the highlights a little bit too much. Go watch Kai Jones highlights. You think he's one of the best centers of all time, but he's not. So that's kind of there's my argument there for Herbert and his, a little bit lower down on the rung a little bit. I'm sure this is going to be a big topic when we talk about the Chargers and the AFC West and that prediction show here in a few weeks. I know Jack and Sanders are really high on Justin Herbert. I'm not. We had an argument about it when we did our AFC South rankings, where I was the whole show. I'm saying Daniel Jones has more playoff wins than him because it's true. Herbert's been there twice and he's been terrible. And I get the regular season numbers are great, but it's the NFL. The postseason matters. That is where legacies are built. That's why everyone is, they tear apart Dak Prescott a ton because he's had the bad postseason games, even though he's won 2 playoff games. Herbert's won 0. But I mean, that's the nature of the league. We tear apart Josh Allen to a degree because he hasn't been able to beat Mahomes in 3 chances in the postseason. Lamar Jackson is a big part of that. We tear apart Lamar Jackson because he hasn't performed in the postseason, and he's actually had good games, and he's won playoff games, and he's been to an AFC Championship game. So for Herbert, it's got to be better in the postseason this season. I expect them to be there, but he has to play well. Like if he puts together a good postseason performance, then maybe this argument changes next season. But for me, I just don't see him as a top 5 quarterback in the AFC, and I don't see him, that high in the NFL either. In the NFL, he's just inside the top 10 for me on my rankings, but let's see. I'd love to see this season and see how it goes. Does he continue to produce these kinds of numbers, especially the low interception numbers? But the playoffs speak a ton for me, and I'm gonna make that argument again on another quarterback later in the show. But Herbert is a C-tier quarterback in the AFC for me, whether you like it or not. That brings into my next one, which is Geno Smith, which I said I was going to talk about earlier because he is in the B tier for me. We live in a world where Geno Smith is the 6th best quarterback in the AFC, and we need to get used to that because his numbers have shown that over the past 2 seasons. Almost 8,000 passing yards, which is 6th in the NFL. Among active AFC quarterbacks, which is the category on the right, he's 3rd in passing yards. In terms of record, top 10, 5th in the AFC, which in the AFC you got a lot of good quarterbacks and good teams in the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs. Completion percentage is top 10, 3rd in the AFC. The big thing for me, and I'm glad the data proves it right, because as an NFL Sunday Ticket watcher, I've watched a ton of games. And for the Seahawks over the last 2 seasons, because they play out in Seattle, they're in that 4 o'clock window. And so you watch their game along with basically 1 or 2 other games every Sunday. So you get to see, like, how is Geno Smith doing? How is Seattle doing? And I viewed it in my mind. I was like, okay, I remember Geno in his time in Seattle as a quarterback that was kind of clutch. He made big throws in the moment. He led them on game-winning drives, and the stats prove it. I mean, he's got 9 game-winning drives over the last 2 seasons. That's 2nd in the NFL to only Patrick Mahomes, 3. So triple the amount of game-winning drives for Geno Smith. And I don't think enough people really think in their weaker quarterback, and he's not really that great. But really think about these Seattle teams they've been a team that like throw the football around. They had the receivers to do it. And Geno was able to do that with DK and JSN and Tyler Lockett. Part of that is like Seattle, because of their team, they were in those spots and those opportunities a ton. And the truth of the matter is, if you get more opportunities, you're going to have a better chance to win more games on game-winning drives, but you still have to do it. And Geno has done that over the last 2 seasons with 9. And he's played in a terrible offensive line. And for a team that loves to throw the football, being sacked 81 times across 2 seasons is not fun. And that's 3rd in the NFL. That'd be, I believe, what is 2nd in the AFC. But Geno, the numbers tell it. The 9-game drives is a big part of it as well. They were just outside the postseason last year. They made the postseason 2 years ago before losing to the team that went to the Super Bowl, Niners. Goes to Las Vegas this season. Move on that regard. Yes, it is Geno. I would be wearing that every single Sunday afternoon show. If Geno went to Las Vegas, he wanted to do an emergency pod for Smith, and then he has shown that he's really low on Geno Smith, as evidenced by his quarter rankings, and also just the ways he's spoken about him. Not really high on Geno Smith. I offered him this Geno Smith that I got for $15, and he said no. So I'm the Geno Smith guy on the pod. Go ahead and deal with that. I'm pro Geno Smith. I'm expecting some good things. The season will be interesting. Pete Carroll, he feels a little too old to be coaching. How those apologies. Chip Kelly, offensive coordinator. I'm really excited for Geno. That's going to be interesting. The receivers is a huge question, of course, for them. Jacoby Myers is basically a receiver, but we do have to remember, like, that Brock Bowers and Geno Smith is going to be a deadly combo this season for me. I'm really excited to see that and see how it plays out. And in fantasy football, I expect Brock Bowers to be even better than he was last season. Last season he was the best in fantasy football. So it's going to be Brock Bowers, my top 5 pick this season in fantasy football drafts. He could be inside the top 5 range because of Geno Smith. I think about Las Vegas and their quarterbacks. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner 2 last season were not great. They're not at the talent that Geno is. So the postseason, the division is brutal. Broncos made the playoffs last season, along with the Chargers and, of course, Kansas City. So they're going to have 6 really tough games already to go along with other tough games this season. But they've got a chance to make the postseason with Geno. And I don't know where I'm going to have them yet because I haven't done my deep dive in them. And we haven't done a prediction show on them. So I won't reveal it even if I had it. But Geno, for me, is a B-tier AFC quarterback. And I'll book in with what I said to start. We live in a world where Geno Smith is the 6th best quarterback in the AFC. And we need to get used to that because the numbers show it. And for me, the eye test shows it as well. That gets us into the NFC, which let me quickly take a sip of my frosted coffee that's no longer frosted since I've been talking for 30 minutes. Very good. All right. Here we are. NFC quarterback tier rankings. In S tier, we have the now year 2 Jayden Daniels. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC. I don't think going to be big arguments for that. I think Philly fans would argue that Jalen Hurts is the best. Abby left the live stream, but she would probably argue that Jalen Hurts is better than Jayden Daniels as well, as an Eagles fan and a big Jalen Hurts fan. But for me, I think Jaden's better. I'll get into his numbers here in a second, but he is my S tier quarterback. He's the best quarterback in the NFC. I think for me, he's the 5th best quarterback in the NFL right now. I'm curious how the sophomore slump goes. We haven't done Washington in our predictions yet either, but they basically did the same thing that the Texans did after CJ Stroud's year one, which is they've gone all in on this offseason and they've tried to acquire talent to help Jaden and to help them potentially go further in the postseason and to make the NFC Championship in year one with Dan Quinn and Kingsbury. They did a great job to keep him. Jaden Daniels is, of course, returning, but they go and pay Deebo Smith the fourth most money for a receiver in the NFL this season. They attack the offensive line of the draft. They trade for Laramie Tunsil. And so Washington is all in on this season. No different than how the Texans were all in for this past season with Stephon Diggs joining the team, and they brought in Joe Mixon as well. So I'm curious to see how it goes. Injuries would certainly play a factor there. Deebo got hurt a fair amount. Laramie Tunsil is not getting any younger, but I'm excited to watch Washington this season. Of course, Jack is, as our resident Commanders fan. But yeah, Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the NFC for me, and I don't think you'll get too many arguments on that. And I'd be very curious to hear the argument for anyone besides Jalen Hurts. And that's why I have Jalen Hurts second for me, just behind Jaden. But let's get into Jaden's numbers. This is Jaden last season. I know I talked big on the numbers just a few minutes ago, but bear with me here in that I think the rushing was a huge part of the last season that helped this offense really go. I mean, 890 yards was second among quarterbacks. It was he was 24th in rushing touchdowns among all players and 23rd among all players in rushing yards, which is crazy. He was a top 23 running back in the NFL last season, playing quarterback full time. That's great. I mean, that's the combined numbers. It's better than Josh Allen. It's better than Lamar Jackson. Lamar was big on the rushing yards last season, had a few more there. And Josh Allen was bigger on the rushing touchdowns. And Jalen Hurts, of course, with the tush push, was bigger on the rushing touchdowns. But he was the best rushing quarterback in the NFL last season for me. And he was basically a top 20 running back last season, which is it's amazing. It's substantial. And it's a huge part, I think, what kind of brings down those passing numbers a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he was clutch. He had 4 game-winning drives last season, which is more than Herbert has had in 2 seasons. And he really, caught the league by storm. Not many people were really high on Jaden Daniels, like super, super high on Jaden Daniels, expecting this going into the draft, after draft night. Drake May was kind of viewed as potentially the second best quarterback. There wasn't necessarily big debate on Jaden Daniels going 1. That was kind of Caleb Williams easily. And I mean, there were people that didn't have Jaden going even in that top 3. There were some people out there who did that, but Jaden Daniels proved it last season, and he's the best quarterback in the NFC for me. Next is the A tier with Jordan Love and Matthew Stafford. I think for me, Jordan Love, the argument there is big part of its eye test for me. Spent 4 years sitting under Aaron Rodgers, and when he came out and started, he was great. I mean, he got paid the big money, and he has really played to that. Last season, he was just hurt the entire season. Hurts his knee, his MCL in week 1, very first game against the defending champs. But I mean, they're 2-0 without him, but when he came back, he was hurt. The knee was hurt clearly for much of the season, and then he also had a few more nicks and bruises throughout the season, and it kind of hurt him. Sanders made the claim that he regressed in year 2. He was hurt all season, and he still made the postseason and lost to the defending champs again in the postseason. And that game, they really never had a chance because they, muff the kick so early and give Philly such a quick advantage. And all of a sudden, Jordan's down 14 in Philly. Like he just really never had a chance. But eye test is a big thing for me. That's why I have Jordan up in the A tier. Matthew Stafford I have in the A tier as well. I think the argument there for me is, I mean, he's made this playoffs 3 out of 4 seasons with Los Angeles. He's brought in, wins the Super Bowl. The year after, they're not good, but for a team that kind of spent all of their capital to go all in on that Super Bowl, the following 2 years, which is the last 2 seasons, they've made the postseason both seasons with rosters that people don't view very high. Now, this last year's roster has actually turned out to be very good, but they relied on a lot of young guys, especially on defense. And it took kind of getting lucky on and good scouting on Puka Nacua and Jared Verse and Kyron Williams, and those became contributors. But Matthew Stafford was a stable force with Sean McVay there in LA, and he's made the postseason 3 out of 4 times in a tough division with the 49ers and the Seahawks over the past 2 seasons. And I think, I mean, he was right there step for step with the defending champs. He was played them the closest in the postseason last year, had a chance to win it late. The snow kind of played a big factor in that game for a team from LA, but Stafford's A tier for me. In the B tier, I have 5 guys. I have, obviously the double cheeseburger with bacon, all of those fries. No, I have Baker, Dak, Jared, Brock, Kyler, and Kyler's really the only one I think you'd get pushback on here in B tier. But for Kyler, I'd say that, last season he had 3,800 plus yards. This was an 8-9 football team, by the way. I don't think people remember that. I think they were like 5 wins again. 21 to 11 touchdown to interception. He had 570 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. And yeah, like I said, they were 8-9 last season. Cardinals were not that bad, and they won some good games throughout the season. And Kyler played great for me. I think this is a chance to be Kyler's last season in Arizona. We'll see kind of how that plays out. But I think he's in there in that B tier, because if you go down to the C tier, I don't feel like you can say that really any of the guys in the C tier are necessarily on the same level as Kyler Murray, at least yet. Bryce Young, maybe you can make that claim, but Bryce is a 6-22 quarterback in his career, which is not great. Caleb Williams is 5-12. Penix, what came in late at the end of last season, and was unable to lead the Falcons to the postseason. Darnold had a great season, but Darnold, I'll get into his numbers here. I think the big thing for Darnold is you remember the last 2 games of the season. Yeah, they were 14-2 going into those last 2, but he was terrible outright. I mean, he was kind of blown to pieces by both LA and Detroit in 2 big, pivotal, essentially playoff road games. One of them actually in the playoffs, one of them actually a road game. The other one was in Arizona because of the LA Fires, and he was not good. They had a chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFC and to have the honor to lose to Jaden Daniels, but he couldn't get that done. 18 for 41, 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. In the wild card game, he has a key interception in the second half, and then just really didn't ever get it going. 25 for 40, not the kind of numbers he had been putting up throughout the year. And so for me, he's down in that C tier. I think he's a step down clearly from Geno, but maybe the numbers won't show that this season. I mean, trading DK, I think, will play a huge factor in that kind of regression a little bit. And Tyler Lockett's not there anymore, so they don't have that safety blanket. It kind of relies on JSN and then Cooper Kupp to be good at his old age. But Darnold, I don't think you can argue Darnold is up in the B tier because of those last 2 games last season. He just was not good. I wouldn't even say he was. Yeah, he wasn't good. He was bad, straight up. And I think that kind of rests in your mind because, like I said, this is the NFL, and how you play in the postseason and how you play in the big games is what's remembered. We all remember the Super Bowl and how that went for Kansas City, And then we thought, okay, the season was terrible for Kansas City. They were a bad team. And you might be right, but they were 15-2 going to that game. So that's not necessarily the correct argument. They were actually one of the best football teams potentially ever last season, but because they got blown out in the Super Bowl, that's all people remember. The same goes for Sam Darnold here, and I think that's why I have him down in that C tier. Jared Goff, you might could make that argument there about how he's played in the postseason and big games, but I think the numbers are way too large. Yeah, he's got a lot of great weapons around him, but you still got to deliver the ball to these weapons, and he's done a great job with that in Detroit. I'll be curious to see how it goes without Ben Johnson. Baker's kind of the same way. He's got a bunch of weapons, sure, but he delivers the football. He's won playoff games before. Brock Purdy, I think, is the one where it's going to be interesting this season. I don't necessarily think he would stay in this B tier. We'll see how it goes. McCaffrey being his health is going to be a big factor in it, but I mean, Brock Purdy was not great last season. The numbers were kind of there, but I think for Purdy, it's just the team was bad. And I think in a large part is because he was unable to execute down the stretch in key games. He's only got 2 career game-winning drives playing for a team that has won a ton of games. So this is the translation. This is a front-running quarterback, not a quarterback that's going to come from behind, not a quarterback that's going to lead you on big drives, as evidenced in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, where they end up with only 3 points instead of 7 against Kansas City in overtime. And Purdy, I think it's kind of a make or break. He got paid a ton of money this offseason, and he'll be locked into that contract. He's going to be the San Francisco quarterback for at least the next 3 years, and he's going to have to rise his level of play because Brandon Ayuk is going to miss a ton of the first half of the season. Deebo Samuel isn't there anymore, and so it's Ricky Pearsall. They haven't decided if they're bringing back Juwan Jennings yet. It's McCaffrey coming off, a big leg injury, and I mean he had arthritis or whatever you call it essentially spread to his other leg out of nowhere. And George Kittle isn't getting any younger. Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. So Purdy's kind of in a prove it year, but I think he's still just there in that B tier because, like I said with Kyler earlier, I don't know if you can make the argument really for anyone in that C tier that they are on the same level as those guys in the B tier, or that the guys in the B tier are on the same level as the guys in the C tier. I just don't think you can make that argument. But I'd be curious to hear it if there was one. And then in the bottom, you have the Saints quarterbacks. I'm really interested to see how that goes. I can't wait to watch the preseason. That'll kind of make my decision there. If you ask me right now, who would I start? I'd say I would start Tyler Shuck. But I would not be. I personally, if I was running the organization, I would start Spencer Rattler to start the year, and then I would go to Tyler Shuck. But they drafted Tyler Shuck, and that's something we have to remember. And that's something I have to remember as a Saints fan, that we drafted Tyler Shuck. Kellen Moore drafted Tyler Shuck, and Dennis Allen was the one who drafted Spencer Rattler. So I think the faith would be in Shuck more than it would be Rattler, but I don't know. It's been interesting. The receivers kind of seem split. They've gone on a trip both with Tyler Shuck and with Spencer Rattler separately so far this offseason, which is kind of weird and kind of interesting. They've both gone on their own little trips to train. Rattler trained with Olave and Shaheed this week in Arizona, and then 2 or 3 weeks ago, Tyler Shuck did the same. They went on a lake trip, and Spencer Rattler missed it because he had his quarterback camp at South Carolina. But it'll be interesting. I think the weapons are there. It's can we stay healthy is a big factor, and I think Kellen Moore is going to put these guys in a good spot. I just hope they play well. I but like I said, preseason's gonna be a big factor for me. Like I need to see these guys in the black and gold and making throws and that kind of thing to really kind of think that okay, they're the starting quarterback. The same went for Derek Carr. Like his first season, his first preseason game, he led a touchdown scoring drive against Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champs, in the first preseason game. And then I was like, okay, Derek Carr's our starter going forward, and he could be the guy in New Orleans. And apparently, he was good as Justin Herbert. If that's kind of an argument for how you feel about Herbert. So yeah, Saints are kind of quarterbacks are kind of in their own tier because I think JJ clearly has proven more than both of these guys, and then the guys above them, I'd argue, are better. But I don't know. I don't think the book is quite closed on Tyler Shuck. I think it's kind of closed on Spencer. But I'm curious to see how it goes this season. Scared, obviously, but excited. I can't wait to see the black and gold, where he released a new helmet. That was cool. And we're releasing a new jersey next week. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. But that does it for my quarterback tier rankings. That essentially does it for today's pod. A little shorter one again, but it's just me, so I can only talk for so long. I'm gonna go play some more college football. I'm gonna play some Siege, and the guys will be back in studio, including me, on Sunday. Excited for that. I believe we're doing group of 5 for college football. So that'll be fun. Sanders will be there. Jack, now married, will be there. He's got a new appearance change, I'll call it, which will be exciting for people to see. I don't know if he'll reveal it because it is something that can be hidden, but we'll see. I imagine he will. And then Sanders will be debuting his new deep voice because he was just called out for having a little mouse voice. So look forward to that. We will see you on Sunday. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.